Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm. Available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
Hey, welcome to Unstable Topics, a fast-paced, jam-packed, unhinged bestie podcast filled with facts, reacts, and made-up games in between.
We're your hosts, Sarah
And Maggie.
And we're excited for you to join our best friend hangout, where we surprise one another with things we find interesting or hilarious just to see how the other will react.
Our friendship might be totally stable, but you never know what your bestie might throw your way to knock you off your game.
So come shake things up, learn something new, and laugh along with us. This is Unstable Topics.
Welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week we are talking about 1961's Reptilicus as picked by me. I know you thought maybe this was a Scott pick or maybe this was a Kyle pick, but truly it was a me pick, and I've got an interesting story about why we're talking about this movie. I don't have any reason why we're talking about it right now. This has just been on my long list for a very long time.
Years.
So 10 years ago when we started Horror Movie Night, was right around the exact same time that I started getting Scream Factory review discs. And there was one that I got in the mail that I was very excited about. It was a double disc DVD with a film that I planned to make us watch this summer called Tentacles. And this was the B-side to that was Reptilicus.
Haven't we not watched Tentacles?
Nope. We have not watched Tentacles. I think you watched it on your own.
I watched Tentacles by myself.
Yeah, you did that on your own.
And you didn't even take notes.
I didn't take notes. But I did this the other week, though. I took notes on The Crow thinking that we were going to watch it, and then we were going to watch it.
I still have my notes for Eight-Legged Freaks from 4 fucking years ago.
We do have to hit up Brian, because Brian said that he will make sure to be here for an Eight-Legged Freaks episode.
He needs to pick that, though.
And now he's in PA, so we can get that back on track.
I'm not wasting a vote on, I'm not wasting a week of my time of my picks on Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yeah, that's a
Brian's pick.
That's fair. That's fair. So I excitedly watched Tentacles, and I thought it was pretty good. I'm excited to revisit it for the podcast. But then I put on this. And as soon as I saw this, I'm like, especially what Horror Movie Night was its first 2 years where it was like real cheap bad movies. I was like, oh boy, is this coming up soon on Horror Movie Night? You better believe it is. And not more than 2 weeks later did the Return of Mystery Science Theater 3000 on Netflix drop. And this was the premiere episode of that new season. And I was just like, ugh. Now it feels like I can't do it. It was just it's too close to when this giant entity of bad horror movies has already done it. But time has passed. I don't even know if those seasons are still available on Netflix. And I rewatched it recently and I said, you know what? It's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but
it's close.
It's a short movie. And boy, does it have things that we could talk about. Yeah. So I decided to pull the trigger and make this be my last pick before the summer of people getting killed in bodies of water picks that I always do when we get into the summer seasons, to remind you to stay out of the water. That is the animal's home, and they don't want us there.
Let's not forget, like, low-key, Scott is very, very upfront about his seasonal picks, but low-key, Matt Kelly has a fucking choice. He has a
Matt
tactic
Kelly?
here.
Autistic? What are you talking about?
Listen, I've got two things, and it's that I will 100% fill the summer with monsters that are in the water, and I will always try to make it so that I have a pick on Friday the 13th to make us watch another Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
Those are my
will
two
fuck
things.
me over whenever you can for the Friday the 13th.
Boy, will I.
Ooh, don't threaten me with a good time.
One last thing about summer stuff. Can you guys help me find a copy of Devilfish? I've wanted to do it for the show for so long, but it's not streaming anywhere, and I can't find a copy in other ways either.
Reptilicus just captures. Here's an interesting thing. This is 2 years before my pick 2 picks ago of King Kong versus Godzilla. And I feel like this is a little bit more fun than King Kong versus Godzilla because it is 10 times more ridiculous. And the
10
budget
times
is
less
icky.
racist.
Yeah.
Well, culturally insensitive, let's say that.
There we go. That's the perfect phrase. But it kicks off with something I always love, a good old-fashioned 1950s, early 60s voiceover narration to set the scene of the atomic age that we're about to be fearful of. And we're just right into it, right? Like, it's like voiceover narration, and they're drilling into a giant dinosaur tail.
Incredible. Which I was like, I think on paper, I think of them discovering like monsters that way a lot. I don't know if I've actually like kind of seen it in action. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Drilling and finding the.
Why don't they do this more often?
Why
in
isn't this why we
2024?
find monsters more often? You know what I
Yes.
mean? How come we aren't running into this more often?
It's a good question. And I actually think that the giant tail prop looks great. Like when
looks
it's like
pretty good.
I do like it, yeah.
like when it's in like they're trying to keep it on ice or whatever, I'm like, that is a pretty, compared to what it looks like when they have the rest of the creature, the tail actually looks real good.
But you know who's looking over that tail? A motley crew of miserable people are responsible for this tail. And they are
I
the
thought the
craziest
Danes
characters.
were happy.
I
They're all
thought they were
sad.
happy, and they picked the wildest bunch of Danish characters that I've
What?
ever
Just
seen.
because they got the wacky janitor and the guy who is perfect at acting like he's about to fall asleep.
Yes.
Listen.
And the beautiful blonde daughter.
Aren't there two beautiful blondes and they're both scientists at the end?
I think
Or
they're
maybe-
like that's nepotism because I think their granddaddies were involved and they all of a
they're
sudden
they're
are
nepo
there.
scientists. No one likes a
but-
nepo scientist.
But listen, they were heroes in this Reptilicus drama.
Yes,
that
very true.
destroyed the entire city. So good for them.
Do you have something with which to celebrate the destruction of Reptilicus?
Yeah, I have Endless Depths, which I've definitely had on this show before. It's a great sour. And
What are the flavor notes of that?
prickly pear, calamansi, mango, and black lava sea salt.
Oh yes, yeah. I want to say there was something that I picked that you did that for. I can't remember.
You didn't do Deep Star 6, not Deep Star 6.
No, Matt
I
did
picked
Deep
it,
Star 6.
But
You might have been
But
Matt.
we did talk about it.
Yeah.
That would have
might have
been 1 or
Last
2 summers
summer.
ago because I was reminding people to stay out of the damn water.
I don't care if you have a Groupon for a submarine. Don't do it.
Yeah. Oh, you want to see the Titanic remains? It doesn't end well.
Yeah. There's a museum in Branson, Missouri. Go to that. You're fine. Anyway, Scott,
And-
what about you?
So like last week, I did some research to see if I could find Denmark's official drink, national drink.
Akavit?
I could not find that, but glog is very close. And I had some it's spiced wine, and it's I think it's German, but it's fucking close enough. It's all the same.
Close.
It's just
That's
spiced
fine.
red wine. So I have some glog to go with Reptilicus's regenerative properties.
There you go.
Yeah,
Well,
he's just
and let's
glogging
get into
around.
those regenerative properties. So, through falling asleep and not properly shutting a door.
That's also not how you defrost a turkey, by the way.
No. We find out that when Reptilicus thaws, that he regenerates. And if you want to know what regeneration is, great news for you. There's at least a 2-minute instructional video breaking down what creatures do, in fact, regenerate. And what I love about this press conference is not only is it a tiny educational video on the definition of regeneration, he also just takes name suggestions from the crowd. Some guy in the audience is just
Reptilicus.
like,
We'll go with that.
Yeah, you should name it Reptilicus. He goes, perfect, we'll go with it.
It's a community event. If their community is going to get destroyed, they're going to try to build it and rebuild it together. Reptilicus.
But yeah,
They should have had that as the bumper sticker for this movie.
We get to meet.
Union proud.
More. We don't get to meet. We get to spend more time with Peterson, the janitor.
That doofy.
You can tell he's dumb because he's wearing overalls.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much.
It's a universal dumb trait that you have. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
if
and
you're
if you want to look
American or
extra
Danish.
dumb, just do the one off the shoulder.
Oh, yeah. Then you're
So-
real. Then you're legally dumb.
So one of the strangest moments in this entire film comes from Peterson, which is when he walks past what seems to just be a fish tank with a warning sign that it's electrical. And he just looks at it for a couple seconds, shoves his hand in it, and essentially is doing the Charleston for a couple minutes while he's being electrocuted until he sees Reptilicus moving in his tank, and then he pulls his hand out.
You got to find fun where you can when you're a janitor.
Any spot you can. And this, really up until this point, I'm like, this is a fun but pretty dumb movie. And boy, does it double down, because now we get to see Reptilicus in his glory.
So much.
In this non-articulating dragon puppet.
The little baby hands. The best. He's just like a T-Rex, but stupider.
You know, it's the it feels almost too marionette-y for not being a marionette puppet.
But
you
did
know
you
what I mean?
read,
Like,
did you read the wiki about this?
No.
When it came out, there were reviews that said that the Danes had done better creature effects than the Japanese.
No.
That's racist.
That's what they said in 1961
that's racism right
or
there.
whatever.
That's
1963.
post-
When was
that's
this movie?
61.
61. Yeah, when this movie came out in 61, a bunch of white dudes were like, no, Japan. The Danes got it.
Yeah, you
And
need to learn how
also,
they're doing it in Switzerland over there.
The thing is that it's Denmark, Matt.
Whatever.
We're
They
being
all
racist.
look
We're
the
giving it
same,
back.
Scott.
Anyway, so Denmark has had one giant monster movie, and it's Reptilicus.
And it's the winner.
One.
It's
So
apparently
I'm
the
gonna-
winner.
They were like going out on a high note here.
Yeah.
So,
you know?
Kyle, I feel confident you are too young for this. Scott, you might remember this. My memory of this just exploded out of my frontal lobe in the last 30 seconds. Do you remember there was a kid's toy of some sort that, for a lack of a better term, it was almost like, think of the cup that you would try to catch a ball in, right? But it was like a smaller version of it, and it was like a snake made of like a bunch of different beads with its head, and it would like, just as you would twist it, that's how Reptilicus moves the
absolutely.
entire movie.
It's multiple balls in a cup. Like
No, it's not. The balls in the cup was just a
Like how you hold it. Like you would hold it like this, and it was like
it was
a bunch of circles that was like a serpent's head
or
with a
ovals.
snake face. Yeah, like
and you would hold it by the tail, and you go like this. And I think that there were strings that went through both sides, like on each side, that were the tension, and then it would just go like this, and it was a very strange wooden toy. I think that it was outdated by the time I was young, and I think that you would only see it in like thrift stores or antique stores or your grandparents' house.
Yeah, like
I know
here's
what
like
you're talking about.
a rough photo idea of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
That's
absolutely
exactly how it moved. for
exactly
sure.
how Reptilicus moved. But I wrote this down because this is the number one thing I've remembered about this movie for over 10 years, and it's 100% the reason I picked this movie. We are watching the American version of this movie.
True,
Which
yes.
means that it's overdubbed, but more importantly, the Americans spent an extra $100,000 to hand draw animation onto the cells of
The snot.
Reptilicus spitting snot, and like at one point it's like they're animating his tongue flailing around in his mouth or something. It is so insane.
It's to beat the Japanese.
Yes, it was. That's why the Danes pulled ahead for one movie. The thing that I was trying to put myself emotionally and mentally in the headspace of a young boy watching this in a theater in, let's say, 1962. In America, and being just probably so fucking shocked by what you're watching, like scared shitless.
I have a feeling that there's zero chance this played in a theater. This screams drive-through to me every
no,
single
man, you
chance.
read the comments on YouTube.
Bunch of boomers talking about seeing this as a kid.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, there were the top 5 comments.
But I'll tell you one other here's the thing. When Reptilicus is together, it's pretty lackluster. But when they show individual parts of him, A+. When they blow him up and you see just his claw fall to the sea floor, which remember that for the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, God, that prop looks good. Like,
Well,
they're
and they're
really good
also-
at these individual pieces.
Yeah, and I don't want to shit on this movie completely because, again, from a historical perspective, this is actually a pretty solid movie.
It's fun.
Like,
Yeah.
it's better than half of those 50s movies that you've picked, giant monster
Yep.
movies. And also, especially in the lab when the scientist is falling asleep, there are some really inventive shots. Like the cinematography is a little bit ahead of its time, in my opinion, for this kind of style of movie. It's almost art house, and the color's odd.
I'm going to say this, too. Not that this movie is gory, because it's definitely not.
No.
But I was reminded that this is still 2 years before Blood Feast.
Yeah.
So the fact that there was even, like, any gore at all when they're, like, drilling into the tail, or
Yeah.
when you see that, like, bloody stump come to the bottom of the ocean, I was like, that is a little edgy for 61, honestly.
Well, and
No,
what
you're
year
talking
was-
about... Yeah.
What year was Horror of Party Beach?
That was 64.
64, and that's in black and white.
Yeah.
64, because here's the fun fact with that one. I think Blood Feast beats it by 1 year. And I just read this the other day in a book. It was
Yeah, show
released.
off.
It was released 6 weeks after the incredibly strange case of people who came back as mixed up zombies or whatever. And the only reason why it's important it came out 6 weeks before that movie is because that movie took away its ability to be the first horror musical.
Oh, man. Everybody was rushing to get there, dude. Like driving as fast down Daytona Beach as they could. Damn.
But yeah, and then I actually, one of the compliments I will absolutely give Reptilicus, the creature, is they set him on fire and he goes into the ocean and we get a slightly more charred up, burnt up version of Reptilicus for the second half of the movie. And I was like, I like that choice, that they actually were like, no, make a second puppet that shows the burn
We got
marks
extra
all over it.
$100 from the Americans
Yeah.
coming. Let's just make
Yeah,
a second puppet.
$100.
Yeah,
That's how they got the associate producer on Indiegogo, is they put that $100 in.
No, Matt said it was 100,000. Can you imagine how much fucking money that was in 1961?
It says the whole budget is just under $250,000, and they made $800,000 at the box office, the drive-in office, maybe. But so I mean,
They cooked the
made
books on this one. They did way better than that.
on the cheap. They made it on the cheap. Yeah, they fucked up the books for sure. But they made it on the cheap, and it shows. But you said Herschel Gordon Lewis, and like I think of the color palette and the film stock and all of it's there, which gives me the fucking warm fuzzies. I really do. I love the way that it looks. It does. I like it a lot better than a lot of those 50s B movies where the monster might be better and look better, but it just doesn't have this silly charm that Reptilicus does. And it sets it falls in exactly the B monster, sci-fi monster movie setup, which this movie made me think of how much that relates to like a do-it-yourself at-home 80s slasher movie that we watch all the time. Like the setup is so much the same. Like just replace the monster with a slasher, or like maybe some of the animal movies, like the Wild or killer animal movies are also in that vein too. So it's like the story setup.
Well, it's whatever cycle it is.
Comfortable.
Like the least expensive, most popular horror motif or trope. Early 60s would have been giant monsters. Late 50s, early 60s, giant monsters. And then you're talking about in the 70s, probably, I don't know. I think haunted house movies, ironically, were
70s,
pretty big.
Well, 70s had a lot of. They had a couple different themes because you had a lot of like devil movies.
Yeah, that was the
70s.
second thing I was thinking is that there's a lot of possession.
There was a lot of devil movies.
Or Satanism taking over people's brains.
But that's just a different version of a haunted house. Like we've talked about before, is like a person possessed versus a house possessed. It's cheap and easy because it's singular.
It's just
like,
person.
Well, what I would say that it all comes down to is it's possession movies, it's haunted house movies, and it's films that maybe not necessarily about zombies, but are very much inspired by the success of Return of the Living Dead.
Yes.
Which, if you look at all three of those films, what they all have in common is that they all tap on the idea of like something happening to someone in a small community suburb situation.
Yeah, it's not expensive to make, but that's the thing. Also, is like I've talked about this before. Like I gravitate towards small scale horror. Like I can't get. I mean, like.
Well, then just wait for my recommendation today because it's a very modern small scale horror movie, which, I mean, at its core is like a 2.5, 3-star movie, but I think it's worth watching. But we'll get there in a second because I just read something fascinating on the Wikipedia, guys. Did you know that there was a Reptilicus comic book?
I did, because I read the Wikipedia as well.
I didn't get to that part of the Wikipedia.
Kyle, strap in for this. So in 1960,
here we come.
In 1961, Charleston Comics produced a comic book based on the film. Reptilicus lasted 2 issues.
No.
Then the copyright lapsed, and Charleston modified the creature's look and renamed him Repsaurus. And the series was named Repsaurus the Terrible, and it would continue from issue 3 all the way to issue 8 when it was later canceled a second time.
Holy shit.
So that means that it was only a couple months because they were probably doing this
Once a month. Yeah.
It's twice a month back in the 60s.
You can get a reprint of the 2 issues with no ads for like $10 on the name of a shopping site that everybody knows, and I don't want to fucking say. But you can get it. You can get it for $10.
But yeah, and there was also a novelization, so another thing you can keep your eyes peeled for, Kyle.
Hell yeah. I'm going to have a whole Reptilicus section on the store.
Well, and I want to call this out because Reptilicus is like culturally significant in a lot of ways. I was surprised by this full list. But there was a pop culture list on Wikipedia, and I'll start with the closest to the time that this was released. On the TV show Beverly Hillbillies, Jethro double dates in a sports car, and they go to a drive-in movie theater to watch Reptilicus. Green Acres.
Oh my God, Green Acres.
In Green Acres, they go again to a drive-in movie theater to see Reptilicus. Then it also showed up in various episodes of The Monkees, but the big ones are in cartoons of the 2000 variety. A clip of the film is used in the 2003 South Park episode Canceled. In the 2010 Futurama episode, Richard Nixon's head references this movie. And then in Disenchantment, King Zork refers to his wife as Reptilicus. So that's 2 Matt Groening shows in a row. Clearly, Matt Groening fucking loves this movie.
He watched this movie stoned so many times and just was able to get so much traction out of it. At least 2 jokes on 2 different shows is is great.
I will actively tell you that my appreciation for Matt Groening falling asleep to Simpsons commentary tracks has just tripled itself, because he is so dry and so funny, and he does not care. He'll just be on the commentary track and just be like, man, the writers really phoned in the ending of this episode.
Wow.
Because it's I'm at the point where he's watching seasons 11 through 11 episodes where it's he's already off doing Futurama. He's clearly put his money down on these are the shows I care about way more than The Simpsons, because I think at his core, he's a sci-fi and fantasy guy. Right. So when he's doing stuff like that,
industry at that point, that's a whole
exactly.
The whole industry that he doesn't get to do much creatively. And
I was going to say, I bet he's not really even allowed to do that much at that point.
No,
it's kind of
that show's not yours anymore.
Well, it's similar to Hot Topic that we've brought up before, but wrestling. The second that wrestling goes on the stock market, you don't get to decide what the storylines are. No. You've got hundreds of thousands of investors who are hey, we hear The Rock is available.
Yes, right. And we hear you make a lot of money in Saudi Arabia. Awesome, cool.
You should keep doing that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
definitely. It makes everybody super comfortable.
This episode went exactly how I thought it would. We had a delight talking about a very short 80-minute fun film from the 60s. And we don't do a ton of 60s. And I said earlier, we need to do more kaiju movies. We've seen how the Japanese filmmakers did it. Now we've seen how the Danes have done it. So, it's up in the air. Both of them did a great job, apparently.
Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while, because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm, available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
Hey, welcome to Unstable Topics, a fast-paced, jam-packed, unhinged bestie podcast filled with facts, reacts, and made-up games in between.
We're your hosts, Sarah
and Maggie.
And we're excited for you to join our best friend hangout, where we surprise one another with things we find interesting or hilarious just to see how the other will react.
Our friendship might be totally stable, but you never know what your bestie might throw your way to knock you off your game.
So come shake things up, learn something new, and laugh along with us. This is Unstable Topics.
"91 Donkey Lane is a magical apartment complex that contains immense power, but lacks intelligent inhabitants."
What is happening?
I'm getting texts.
Why are we getting a lot of texts?
People found out what we did.
Oh, dividing Mike Myers into an infinite amount of tiny Mike Myers?
Listen to 91 Donkey Lane for free on Spotify or your favorite podcasting app. More at 91donkeylane.com. See you there, you donkeys.
And now, double feature time. I hope I'm remembering this movie correctly. But I went with The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms because I'm pretty sure...
Fuck you, man!
Was that also yours? Okay, wait, I have my... Okay.
No, say yours. I have
that
a
is... Am I incorrect? That is also that they find a dragon in the ice and he thaws out, right?
He thaws out, and yes, yes, it's a fantastic monster movie.
It's a great stop motion early Ray Harryhausen film. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great flick, and that was something that I would have paired with too. But because you made the right choice, I will go with a movie called Them. Not the Stephen King one, but the Ant one. And it's only because it is on the double feature of The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms that I would have
Boy,
chosen.
it is. You and I have the same DVD, boy.
So it would have just been my mistake. I put in the wrong side of the dual disc, and now I'm watching them.
I'll let Scott pick, because Beast from 20,000 Fathoms isn't what I wrote down in my Word document, but I was like, oh, wait, this is a better pick. So I'll tell you what I wrote down after Scott goes.
I'm going to go with my personal favorite Godzilla movie. I'm going to go with Godzilla King of the Monsters. From, was that 2019, whenever it was?
I think so.
2018. Yeah. I actually watched it in bed the week before watching this, and I was just like, I don't dislike giant monster movies anymore, and I feel bad that I spent so much of my life thinking that the Toho Godzilla movies were fucking shitty, because when we get to my what did we watch, I was wrong.
Yeah. All right. Well, the other thing that I had written down, because I also think that it starts with them finding a creature and thawing it, was The Thing from Another World. Not The Thing,
yes. Yeah, no,
but the
That
50s
was
The Thing from Another
straight up
World.
the one that I was thinking before Beast of 20,000 Fathoms. Man,
Kyle, we're wearing the same color
what?
shirt and we're sharing the same brain.
There's a lot happening here. And I'm also gonna chalk it up to us realizing that all of those movies have really cheap looking war rooms. Like this was the
It was the lunchroom at the studio.
Yeah, the fact that they're all watching their city get destroyed from basically where I took my lunch break when I sold women's shoes at Macy's was so upsetting and so bleak that it worked really well.
All right. Well, now that we've gotten through Reptilicus, we've gotten through our double features. Hey, do you want to tell us what you like about our podcast, or do you just want to know what we're going to be talking about in the future? Hit up our Patreon, patreon.com/HMN podcast. You can join a Slack chat with the three of us and a bunch of other super fans. You can find out what movies we're talking about. You can vote on bonus episodes for our Patreon page. You can watch videos of our pretty faces. See Kyle and I in our matching blue shirts. And go buy some. Speaking of shirts, go buy some shirts from us at hmnpodcast.com, or just find us on social media, Instagram and Facebook, HMN Podcast. We're always there to chat and shoot the shit. And lastly, let's talk about some recommendations, some stuff that we've watched and read. Scott, you were talking about how you love a small scale horror movie.
Hit me.
I finally checked out Cobweb.
Dude, that's top of my to watch list. Is it good?
I liked it. Okay. I didn't love it, but I was
you
like,
said this is a 3 out of 5?
Yeah, this is like a solid 3 out of 5. Okay. But it's got the right runtime. We'll start with the positives.
89 minutes?
It's like 86 minutes. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It takes place at Halloween, which is always a good thing. It actually had some like nice twists and turns that I didn't expect. I like how the creature looks. Honestly, it may have even been a 3.5 star out of 5 for me when I think about it more. It's just one that I'm not going to ever rewatch, but how many new horror movies do I ever feel like I want to rewatch? I've found that for me, too many times rewatches tied to like emotional attachment and nostalgia more than like if it was a good or bad movie anymore. So like, if it's not making me nostalgic or feeling retrospective, I'm just like, hey, that was a great watch, and I'm going to move on from there. But yeah, I really liked Cobweb. I must say, go and check it out. It's on Hulu, or it's on Disney Plus if you have the Hulu add-on option. So there's my pitch.
It's on Disney Plus if
So
that's crazy.
I have an adult account on Disney Plus, which means that I have to put in a 4-digit PIN to watch anything.
Watch the adult side of Disney Plus.
Well, because here's the thing, I really wanted to watch
the South. You fuck.
You went the exact opposite direction I was thinking.
I was very late to the party on watching the Beatles Get Back. And then I was like, I'm going to watch this. And I went to log on and it wasn't there. Like I searched everywhere and I couldn't find it. Weird. And I was like, fuck, did they pull it down? So I did some Googling and it was like this was like 2 years ago. Disney had decided that they were going to hide any R-rated content on the app because so many kids were using the app, but you could set up like a parent account where you had like a 4-digit code, and that would give you access to anything that was R-rated on there. So when they merged with Hulu, anybody who already had that 4-digit code just had the entire Hulu library also attached to it because they just bought Hulu recently.
Yeah.
So I was like, great. So I haven't logged into Hulu in like 4 months because I'm just like, fuck it, I'll just
everything's there.
I want to contact Disney Plus's help real quick just to be like, can I cancel my Hulu, or is that going to mess things up?
right. If hypothetically, because it feels like you're doing something wrong. It feels like something didn't go in their favor.
Like it's like when my friend canceled Paramount Plus, but they still had full access to Paramount Plus for months. It's like, this is not an issue that you necessarily want to alert the help desk about, but you're also like, something seems broken.
Yeah, right. Can I benefit? Is it hurting me? What's broken here?
But yeah, so that's my recommendation. Either one of you, fight it out. Who wants next?
Cal, go ahead.
I don't know if you can hear in the background. You may or may not. My son is playing drums, which directly relates to, he has a little toddler drum set, directly relates to what I want to talk about watching, which was, it warmed my heart because we started this, he was not playing drums, and then while Matt was talking, he started playing downstairs, and so Hunter and I, my son, 3-year-old Hunter. Whiplash. Matt, I missed you saying that. No, we watched The Last Waltz. Hunter has been really, we don't do a lot of like screen time with him. He doesn't show a lot of interest except when it's watching like live music. He likes watching live music videos, like concert music videos. And it's like, it depends, it's still like, Carly loves 90s country, so like he likes Alan Jackson and like, but also I love the band, and so I was showing him the band and John Prine and Tom Petty and all these sort of like 70s artists that are fun to watch live. And so one morning over the weekend I was like, well, let's sit and watch The Last Waltz, and because he already likes the version of Up on Cripple Creek that we watch on YouTube that like is part of that. So I was like, well, let's find out more, right? Would you like to know more? So I asked him that. He said yes. So I showed him The Last Waltz, and just, it is truly one of the greatest concert films, music films, like of all time.
Scorsese?
It's Scorsese. So it's like, that is part of it, right? But it's also even more of that than what I think is what the band put together as the performance, as the show, right? Like it's filmed beautifully, right? It's no doubt also one of the most interesting visual concert films. Like there's just a lot of smooth moments. It catches every detail of every member that's on the stage, which there's a lot. There's the band, there's the backing band, and then there's like the special guests that sometimes they bring out. And it's such an interesting moment in musical history, not just that band's history, but like music history. And, Van Morrison's there, and Muddy Waters is there, and Joni Mitchell's there. And it's like you have all these key members of that musical movement in history all together on a stage. And it sets the tone for like what we see in modern collaboration in music. Like, when Taylor Swift is bringing up, guest after guest on her Eras tour, like that's directly related to folk and blues musicians bringing on other fellow folk and blues musicians to sing an old standard, or like to sing like a classic folk song, or like a Guthrie song, or like whatever. It's such a cool doc. And to see also my son just sitting there watching Levon Helm play drums and sing, and he does that now on his little toddler drum set. Like he'll drum and sing. It's magic. So kid or no kid, watch The Last Waltz, because it's just a great, fun music documentary concert film. Like there's so much happening there. Anyway.
All right. I've actually never seen that, so I will. I will make it a point to check it out, because I do
you don't
like
necessarily
the band.
need to like the band either. Like there's so much happening there, but it's really cool.
Nice. All right, well, Kyle, you've done your thing, so you can take a load off. And
and for me, I'm gonna keep it real short. I alluded to it earlier, but getting into the Toho stuff. Ibira, Horror of the Deep, is streaming on Max, and it's about a giant fucking crab monster who or a lobster, some sort of crustacean, who terrorizes an island, and then they wake up Mothra, and they wake up Godzilla, and Mothra and Godzilla go and fucking fight a giant crustacean. So, super ridiculous.
that's what I mean. So here's the thing, and I don't think I articulated this correctly when we did the King Kong versus Godzilla movie. It opened the door for so much just here's people in rubber suits fighting giant creatures, and I could watch those for hours. I could literally watch Mothra and Godzilla beat up every type of monster.
Turn my brain off and just watch them. Like, they're always fun, and they're not good. They're objectively kind of bad, but.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, only the first Godzilla movie until like 2019 is like a smart script.
Yeah. I mean, even let's be real, the American Godzilla, and if you guys noticed, I did pronounce it differently when I'm talking about Toho because I'm trying to be correct, not trying to be offensive. But in any case, the American one that came out in, I want to say 2016 or whatever, with the Mutos, the aliens, like the male and the female, and they like destroy Las Vegas and all that shit. Not a good movie. It's with Bryan Cranston in it, it's not a good movie. And it has the thing that I like least about these movies, which is too many human conversations. That's why Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is fucking awesome. That's why I also really enjoyed Godzilla vs. Kong, because there's a lot more monster screen time. Pacific Rim, tons of monster screen time.
Yeah.
That's the shit that I want to see. I do not want to see people hand-wringing about what to do about a giant monster. Because there's only one answer. You let them fucking fight.
Well, I think the one exception, and I haven't seen it, but everyone is telling me that Godzilla -1, which is a lot more of the human side of it, is like
but it's a
absolutely
serious
unbelievable.
Movie. It's
a serious
like
movie.
The Toho ones that we're talking about. I don't think that it's a Toho, is it?
I cannot remember. I'll have to look into it. I know that it was produced in Japan. Like it is a Japanese production. That's why we basically got 2 Godzilla movies in like 4 months.
Because they're
the American
separate,
one's happening and the Japanese one's happening.
They have separate licenses.
Yes. Well, guys, that was another episode of Horror Movie Night. We'll be back next week with even more fun. So stay tuned, and we'll be right here waiting for you.
Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while, because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm, available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
Hey, welcome to Unstable Topics, a fast-paced, jam-packed, unhinged bestie podcast filled with facts, reacts, and made-up games in between.
We're your hosts, Sarah
And Maggie.
and we're excited for you to join our best friend hangout, where we surprise one another with things we find interesting or hilarious just to see how the other will react.
Our friendship might be totally stable, but you never know what your bestie might throw your way to knock you off your game.
So come shake things up, learn something new, and laugh along with us. This is Unstable Topics.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.